Should we tax the rich? My response, in my personal opinion, is a soft yes, of course. However, we have to dissect that statement in many, many ways. Because what does it mean, tax the rich? Well, we literally tax everybody. I, for one, don't really have a big problem with taxes as it stands. And I know a lot of libertarian types are more right-wing libertarian types. Taxation is theft. I personally don't agree. I think we have a community, and I think taxes are a part of defending that community. And it is really, really complicated because I'm on the libertarian spectrum as well, but I lean left, so I'm in favor of taxes. But let's talk about taxes today. We'll start with this story from Fox News. Billionaires could face up to 97.5% tax rates under Sanders' plan, economists. Okay, I've heard this over and over again. Tax the rich. I have always asked my left-wing friends, what does that mean? And they say the rich have too much and we should redistribute that. Okay, I stop and say, wait, why do I care if a rich person has too much money? Can you give me an answer? And they say, well, because we need money for school. Okay, stop. So we're not talking about just taxing the rich. That seems to be like you're targeting an individual you don't like, or like you just explain it to me, right? Okay. What you're really saying is we need money, right? Okay. We need money for schools, healthcare. Where can we find it? I tell you this, you can't find it in taxing the rich. Now, should we tax the rich? I think the answer is yes. Why? Because we don't want power to become centralized and grow out of control. Hey, guess what? Tim's on the left, isn't he? The thing I see about taxes is that when you have a very high tax rate, income tax rate, not wealth tax, that's the other thing I want to talk about, right? Is Bernie and Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax, which, as Andrew Yang pointed out, European countries are moving away from because they had problems implementing it. The general idea with the wealth tax is that if you have wealth, you must pay a tax. Literally makes no sense. Literally makes no sense. So let's talk about this. If we tax income at a very high rate, you know what'll happen? Billionaires will just take a smaller salary and income, and they will more heavily invest and expand and put money into things, into things. When a rich person is receiving exorbitant amounts of money, they don't just go, oh no, now I have to pay 97.5% taxes. They go, if I make another million, I'm going to lose almost all of it to the government. What can I do with this million and take a tax write-off? You see the point? This is better for the economy. It provides asset value to the individual who created the wealth, which they can later sell, and it bolsters the economy. But when you do a wealth tax, you strip away that incentive. So let's have a conversation. I believe in taxing the rich. Okay. I believe we have to do specific things, and we have to be careful about how it's implemented. And the purpose is, for one, as I stated, decentralizing power, making sure we don't have, people running amok, buying elections and doing crazy things. But more importantly, it's because when taxes go up for corporations, the corporations don't just sit there and go, oh, harumph, I say. We do have a lot of other problems to consider, though. But these companies, me being somebody who owns a company, when I'm sitting here, I'm not going, oh, man, I better not spend a dime so that I can all just pay the government. I say, oh, no, I might as well just hire somebody. Yeah, that's right. If you've got the money sitting around and you think to yourself, if I just take the cash, I pay a massive tax on it because I'm already over a certain threshold, or as someone who's already wealthy, I'm talking about, someone like Bernie Sanders is a millionaire, or someone like Jeff Bezos is a billionaire, it makes more sense to invest that money outright. And most of them do in the first place. So what I'm saying isn't out of line with what's already happening. Jeff Bezos, his income was like $1 million in what, 2017? Yeah, $1 million. They call him a billionaire because they act like his stock is cash. It's not, okay? When he makes money, when he makes real money, he invests it to a certain point. His actual salary is like $86,000 a year. Yeah, that's less than some journalists, amazingly. So here's what ends up happening. When you have a higher tax bracket on income and certain kinds of investments, people like Jeff Bezos invest the money. Literally what he's doing. He's not taking $1 billion in cash. When you do a wealth tax and then say, it doesn't matter. Okay, Jeff Bezos, you're worth billions of dollars. You then put him in a position where he has to choose. You don't make enough money, and even if you make more, we're going to tax all that too. How is Jeff Bezos supposed to come up with $1 billion to pay the small percentage of wealth tax for his $800 billion in wealth, or his $130 billion in wealth? I did a video about this before. And then the left said, Tim, he'll just sell stock. Okay, you also realize that selling stock will reduce the value of that stock across the board. The plan makes no sense. Oh man, I can't believe I'm right. Let's read the story. Fox News reports two economists at the University of California, Berkeley claim that billionaires could face a 97.5% average effective tax rate under Senator Bernie Sanders' plan, which would easily thump other Democrats running for president in 2020. Emmanuel Says, one of the professors, told Bloomberg that with the wealth tax, you get directly at the stock instead of hitting the flow of income, making it a much more powerful deconcentration tool than income taxes. The report pointed out that Sanders has said the number of billionaires in the U.S. would be cut in half within 15 years under his plan. Why is that a good thing? I mean that literally. Why is it a good thing? If you're talking about needing money for programs, then what we need to do is create wealth. We need to generate revenue and increase wages for people. Just because someone is a billionaire because we nebulously value a stock at a certain price doesn't mean they have money. Okay, let me explain something to you. Let's say I find a rock. Okay, I'll explain how net worth works. Let's say I find a rock on the ground and I pick it up. What's that rock worth? Well, what can you sell it for? What if someone came up to you and said, I'll give you $1 for that rock. Congratulations, your rock is now worth $1. Let's say the rock is the only thing you own. Excuse me. Your net worth is $1. Let's say that person buys it for $1. Later, someone comes up and says, I would like that rock. Now you're probably thinking, who cares about a rock, man? Exactly my point. The object itself is irrelevant. Let's say somebody walks up and says, I want that rock. The guy goes, no way, I bought it for $1. I'm not selling it. And the guy goes, I'll give you $2. Congratulations, your rock is now worth $2. This is how they sell assets like paintings. The value goes up because someone says, no way, I bought $50 million. I'm not selling it. And the value can go down if nobody wants to buy it. So it's an excellent store of value. Eventually, that rock gets traded around and the value keeps going up because people really do want that rock. Let's say somebody's finally got it. They bought it for $5. Now 10 people are all bidding, waving their hands. I'll give you 10, I'll give you 20, I'll give you 30. Finally, he sells it for $50. That rock is now valued at $50. But guess what? Bernie Sanders comes along and says, I see you've just bought a rock for $50. Okay. You got to pay a 10% wealth tax on that. That means I need $5 from you every year if you want to hold that rock. And the person says, but I don't have $5. I just have the rock. And then Bernie goes, well, sell the rock. Seriously, how does that make sense? The value of the object is irrelevant. If he then turns around and says, I want to sell this, but nobody wants to buy it, it's valueless. So what happens if the year ends? It's April now, okay? And for the year 2018, they say you have a wealth tax on this $50 rock. It's 8%, so it's, $4.63 or whatever. And he says, okay, well, I don't have that. And they say, well, then you got to sell the rock. And then he turns around and says, okay, fine, I guess I'll sell the rock for $50. And guess what? Nobody wants to buy it. Nobody will buy the rock. And then he thinks to himself, but how can I pay the tax bill? Oh, you can write down the value of the rock, right? And say, hey, nobody would buy it. The rock is worth $0. I don't got to pay taxes on it. The point is, net worth is nebulous in a lot of circumstances. Vice Media still claims it's worth $4 billion, but Disney claims their $500 million investment is worth $0. If Disney's investment is worth $0, how is Vice worth $4 billion? But that's what they'll say. So look, I get it. In the end, it comes down to how you report it on your taxes, and shares have value, and it's complicated. But listen, none of this makes sense. None of this was planned out effectively, and I'm someone who still believes we should have a high bracket for high-income earners. What Bernie is proposing and what Elizabeth Warren are proposing literally makes no sense. And therein lies the problem. Isn't it true that if I'm in favor of taxing the rich, that would put me on the left, right? But what if I disagree on their plan because they haven't actually explained how it makes sense? Does that make me conservative? No! Welcome to my world. When they propose a minimum wage increase across the board, and we can see the ramifications of this, and you try to explain the nuance, they say you're conservative. Okay. Andrew Yang also opposes the minimum wage, and he believes that a UBI makes more sense. I disagree with Andrew Yang to a great deal on UBI, but I will admit, I've warmed up to it a little bit, partly due to his ability to explain it. The important thing about UBI from Yang is that he's not talking about taxing Americans to pay Americans. That makes no sense. It's like a Mobius strip, He talks about a VAT tax on consumer goods, which could also be consumer goods shipped overseas. Now we're talking. Let's talk about minimum wage. If New Jersey increases the minimum wage, that means locally, bad news for everybody. Internationally, good news for those in New Jersey to an extent. So, yes, I actually believe we should have a minimum wage. But I rag on it frequently For one, because the companies are lying when they implement it. Two, the Democrats seem to just blindly call for it, in my opinion, because they're manipulating us based on what we really want without implementing a sound plan. And three, while it may make sense in many circumstances to have a minimum wage, right now we have a tech issue that must be dealt with. Hence, I like Andrew Yang. If you jack up the minimum wage, people will replace them with robots. So we need to figure out that point first. But the general idea between why we do have a base rate and a high tax rate is to keep a certain level of equality. Now, look, a lot of people might think, so what if there's billionaires? And for the most part, I agree. But you do not want to live in an oligarchic state. It will be a nightmare. The property will all be so expensive, no one will ever own a building again, and you will be living in essentially a fiefdom controlled by some ultra-wealthy dude who owns all the property or a company that does. While I think it's fine for people to be billionaires and to earn that, I lean to the left, social liberal, which means I think there have to be some checks to make sure power doesn't grow out of control. That includes the government, just as much as private and corporate entities. So Bernie, you want to roll out a wealth tax that would be 97.5%? Don't be surprised when you encounter the tech problem. Anybody can just move their business anywhere today. And I tell you this, if he tried implementing this, Jeff Bezos would be like, what are my taxes going to be? Yeah, China? Yeah, I want to do whatever I want. I'm a billionaire. I'll bring my companies to you. And China's going to be like, absolutely, come on down. He's going to move all his money overseas. He's going to move his company overseas. And then America's going to be going, wait, don't leave. Oh, you can't stop him. What he's doing isn't illegal. He can easily move everything over. He can snap his fingers and transfer that money to a foreign account. And he can easily go to another country, renounce his citizenship. I tell you this, man, there are literally billionaires who renounce their citizenship and become citizens of small Caribbean islands to avoid having to pay taxes. Okay? This is not going to solve the problem in any way. We have a global world with technology where people can travel. And while I agree with stopping the rampant growth and separation and wealth inequality, these aren't solutions to that problem. The solution would be we need to make sure that there is more market competition. We need to make sure that there are more small businesses that can compete against the big dogs. And the policies being enacted are doing the opposite of that. I am not a laissez-faire capitalist, by no means. I believe that we need more market competition, but it needs to be regulated to a decent extent. Otherwise, you just see, disaster. And you get people playing tricks and lying and a bunch of other problems. Anyway, whatever. You get the point. It's an article from last week, but I wanted to talk about this stuff. So I'll see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. on the main channel. Stick around. Podcast is every day at 6:30 p.m. It's just all of my content, Tim Pool Daily Show on the podcast. And I'll see you all next time.